pleasure to introduce you Melwynn Leong. Now, Melwynn Leong is a technical sales professional with 8 years of experience with EPC and end users of the oil and gas industry across Asia Pacific markets. He has a track record of exceeding sales targets in highly competitive environments, and he believes in optimizing sales performance through 2 areas. One is collaboration with channel partners and also the collective strengths of a dynamic sales team. His keen eye for new business opportunities has helped him in numerous occasions in nurturing prospects to reliable customers. Wow, that's wonderful. Now, Melwynn is constantly inspired by the positive impact that digital solutions and technological advancement can have on our environment. Thank you. Please continue to do that. And he made it his modus operandi to adopt the change whenever an opportunity arises, at work or at home, I reckon, yeah. Okay, I can't wait. So I really should keep quiet. He's gonna share with us his 20 must-dos for online interviews. Whoa, that's wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna stop share and pass the floor over to Melwynn. Thank you so much. Take it away, Melwynn.
Thank you very much, Eileen. And good afternoon to one and all. Welcome. And I hope all of you are feeling comfortable. Do relax, it's more of a conversation today, really to share about my experiences on how I've actually managed my online interviews. During this session, I will share with you my personal experience, also experiences that I've heard from my friends in the industry. I think the COVID times has changed for us a lot. And I think one thing that Eileen actually mentioned that struck me very much during the first part of it was to look at opportunities. Now, opportunity abounds is how you see it, how you're looking at it, what's your perspective of it. And then the other part is also to be able to value yourself as an individual. Because if you don't see the value in yourself, if that opportunity arises, you'll not be able to see yourself taking up that opportunity. And now with online interviews, I would say the market is huge. You can have a company, right, having to do the interview from an overseas. And with hybrid work mode now, you basically can work in Singapore for an employer in the US or in the Middle East or in another country for that matter. And so if we want to look at online interviews, I think personally it's something that we need to focus on, not only for the purpose of online interviews, but also if you look at how we are working in the future, presenting to your bosses, collaborating with your colleagues. I think this is a very important attribute that you can showcase to your potential employers that you have as a skill, especially now in this day and age where technology is very, very important. And because of these 2 years of not being able to travel, a lot of the old mindsets that we have on having to meet customer face to face, a lot of the customers now are saying that, hey, let us have a chat online and let us see whether we really want to take the next step forward. Okay. So it's really important that we work this skill and to think of it as a skill, not only for the online interviews, as we know, because sometimes focusing on the interviews and thinking about all the other stresses of obtaining a job, like me, when I lost my job, it can be very pressuring, it can be very stressful. But if you look at it as basically understanding your potential employer and what you can bring to the table for the benefit of the company as well, you basically see that as a conversation to understand yourself better and also to understand companies, what they do in the industry, and then you can align your life goals and your aspirations as well. So, well, everybody looks at advertisement and it's very, very common nowadays, and we get attracted, right, with the iPhone 3s, with the Samsung, if you are a Samsung lover, and for sports, right, fashion, Adidas, Nike, all of these are advertisements and all of these are social media that attracts us. So when we make a decision to go to the shop, to go and take a look at the new iPhone 13 Pro model, or the new Samsung, or the new Adidas, or the new Nike model, basically this social media has caught our attention. So similar to our CV, we prepared so much, we put in a lot of effort to prepare that, and that has basically earned us the opportunity to then entice the employers to want to come to speak to us. So the door is open, right? So the interview really is a kudos to you if you're landed up with an interview. It is an opportunity. And the reason why they have called you for an interview is because they're interested in you. All right. So if they're interested in you, then at this point in time, you know that they value you. And so it's really a time where you get to know who this person is interested in you, and also at the same time showcase even more, because on your CV there's only so much that you can share on a single page, especially now when people are reading very quickly and browsing through the CVs. A single pager is what they're looking at, and so highlighting your key skill, your key attributes, that's really going to attract them. But what is going to bring you even further is this opportunity to do an interview with them. All right. So a little bit about me. My name is Melvin. I'm a corporate account manager. I'm actually trained in chemical and environmental engineering. And so I branded myself as a technical sales professional. Basically, if you look at a very common jargon, is business development, sales executive, a salesman, a sales manager. But why I chose to put myself as a technical sales professional is that this is a branding for myself. And it's very important when you begin this process of job searching, when you begin this process in crafting your CV, you need to have in mind a story, because everybody remembers stories. I believe all of you, when you were younger, you remember stories. You remember how things happen. You remember why things happen. So having to introduce yourself with a story is important, and having a branding for yourself is important. So for me, my goal is basically to drive sustainability, and this has been my aspiration in all the roles that I get involved in, and I share that very, very much to my mantra, to be able to support the world in the role that I am serving. So be it serving to our customers, or being supplying to end user, it's very important that I have this mindset, because this mindset wouldn't change from companies to companies. It is me, myself. And so it's important to be yourself, understand what you like, and that's the beginning of the journey of your career development in whatever career path that you are in. So I started off in the oil and gas industry, all right, for a good 8 years. And now, as you know, market is changing. Oil and gas industries may not be as lucrative as what it used to be. And so around 8-9 years in my time in my technical sales profession, I actually got retrenched from my job. And so that gave me a wake-up call to remain relevant, to upskill myself, and to basically focus on soft skills. So what are soft skills, right? So basically, it is skills that are transferable from one role to another. And so a lot of these soft skills are what you can actually build into this online interview, and you can actually bring it forward to your potential employer and showcase that in your interview, right? So today, my sharing basically will come in 3 phases so that everyone is easier to understand. The first part is the before part, right? Upon receiving that call or upon receiving that email, at that very instance, the interview already starts. So if you receive a call from your future employer, it can be a HR, it can be a recruiter calling you up, say, hey, Mr. Melvin, we saw your CV and we're really interested in you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? So immediately you're on interview mode, right? So are you prepared? So Eileen said, talking about your elevator pitch, talking about dropping links, talking about the major parts, attributes, your strengths in that short call, so that you engage them even further. It's really about enticing them. So if you go to a shop, right, after you see the advertisement, you go to a shop, and if the shop is really run down, you don't feel that kind of appeal. So it's really about packaging yourself through an email, responding to the email promptly, right? After receiving the email, make sure that you reply promptly, and then reply in good English, right? Proper, right? And giving them available time slots if those are not written there. So we will cover about that on before. And then we also cover about during the interview. So this is the most nerve-wracking part, right? All of us talking about technology glitch and all that. I'll share my fair part of my experiences as well as an interviewee, right? And then also on the interviewer part, right? How we see candidates and how candidates has behaved or responded during the interview. And then the last part, which I think we all need to focus on, is the after. on how you're responding, how you're following up, and also what are the next steps that you need to do. And we have to remember the interview process doesn't end after the interview, after you send all the thank you emails. It's going to be a cycle. And as far as you have this cycle as a habit, like what Eileen has mentioned, it will help you to develop to be much better the next time. And irregardless whether it's the first interview, the second interview, the third interview, or even the fourth, or even the last interview with the CEO, that you know for sure, right? 95% you get the job. As long as you don't get to sign on the final contract, you're not gotten the job. And so even if your HR says, okay, you know, this is just a courtesy, you know, if we just go to this call and you're done and we provide you this role, don't fall for that. You still need to go through the same process. So that will keep you constantly coming. And this is something that whether it's in your sales role, whether it's you are doing customer support, engineering role, a business administrative role, these same processes, if you follow through, it will help you to be very successful also in your career. All right. So preparing for the interview. So I always like this phrase, right? By failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. Or if you fail to prepare, you prepare to fail. So preparing for the interview is really very crucial. But what do we need to prepare? So now I'll ask Eileen to open up the polls, and we'll be sharing 2 questions, right? Just to get a feel about how much time you spend, you know, preparing for your interview. Is it 0, or is it you spend just 0.5 to 1 hours or 2 hours and above? So preparing is important, but it's also important to also remember that sometimes you want to prepare, but doing above and beyond will not serve you too much good as well. Because obviously for myself, later I will share with you, sometimes over preparing means sort of like looking a little bit too desperate and overcompensating. And you want to have a build up, you know, of the discussion of the interview, because you know that you need to have first interview, then second interview, then third interview. If you start to throw everything and you want to try to push everything, you'll realize that, hey, I spoke to Mr. Tan on the first interview, and then Mr. Tan is joining on the second interview. So he will probably remember what I've told him on the first interview, and you probably do not have any more things additional to add on. So you want to try to put in enough effort, but at the same time, you must understand if you are in the process of looking for multiple jobs, then this can be quite taxing if you're putting too much time on it. So you want to try to focus yourself and not spread yourself too thin, right? In putting too much time in the preparation. Focus on it, and I think it also depends on how often or how frequent you are getting the interviews. So typically, you will realize the interviewers typically will come in a slew, right? If you're getting success on one role, you realize that, hey, you know, you start picking up calls in the next day, in the next day, in the next day. You're getting interviews back to back from different organizations. And if you're focused on getting on one role, right? So that comes back to my point. Being focused on what you want is really important, because if today you said that you want to be a HR executive, the next point you're applying for sales, and then the next point you're doing business development and accounting. It is really totally different role, and so the preparation for each is different. So it's very important, right, before you even start on that journey to know. It's important to know what exactly you want. All right. So I see that all of you, right, most of you are spending 1 to 2 hours or 2 hours and above, which is good. All right. If it is your first interview after a long period of time, for myself, I spent more than 3 hours, because I need to write down what are my elevator pitch in case the customers, the interviewers ask me something about, tell me about yourself, you know, why should we hire you? These are all the common questions that you need to start preparing, and it takes time from the beginning. But after you've got this drafted out, it's the practicing and all that. So that part will basically cut short your time. And then if you want to learn more about the new company, and then if your roles is already fixed, then I think the ideal time is roughly about 1 to 2 hours. All right. Thank you for sharing.
Yep, I've shared the results. Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
good.
correct.
Let's move on.
Yes. All right. So which do you spend the most time preparing before the interview?
Okay.
I think most of us are spending what we're seeing here. I think most of us are spending time researching about the company, about the role. And then the second highest one was basically on the frequently asked questions. Okay. So I will share about my experience.
Yeah, be fine.
Yeah, so let's talk, right, about preparing for interviews. For my journey, preparing for the interview, of course, the most important is to do research. Of course, I will not compromise about researching about the companies. I think it's very important to understand for yourself also the organization that you are potentially going to join. So things like their culture, right? Look out for what are their interests. So for me personally, I'm very interested about how companies are taking care of their employees. I think that's very one important thing. The second part is because that I'm so keen about sustainability. How is this company moving towards net zero? How is their operation being carbon negative? What kind of social responsibility programs that they're doing there? So these are all very closely dear to me, and understanding this part of the aspects on top of the what do they do as their business, what do they sell, who are their competitors. That is one part which I think a lot of us focus on. But I think the other part about the culture, about the mission of the company, about what are the mantra that they follow, I think it's important. Because if you realize that a lot of us, we tend, for me personally, I feel that there are a lot of people, we have a tendency, and I see from the industry, a lot of people are moving from organizations to organizations. And a lot of times it's not about whether they like the role or not. It's mostly about the company culture, about the focus of the company, what they do. And it's not something that is very fitting for you. So for me, one of the other aspects that I go additionally to really research about, and is for my own benefit, is to really understand the company culture and what they stand by. Now, for me, one of the failures that I actually met, and this is a real life situation, was actually when we started COVID, I was actually trying to get some jobs on some interviews as well. And obviously, at that time, interviews over online is not that common. And actually, it was my first time doing it. And so actually, I wasn't really prepared. So my downfall was that, firstly, I didn't install the app on my laptop. So I actually waited for the last minute, because in my mind, I was thinking, okay, you just click the link and then it will start. But most of the apps, it requires you to set up an account. So you potentially have to key in an email address. And then from the email address, you get the verification email, and then you set it up. And then you have to test. And then sometimes your speaker doesn't work. There was a lot of things going up on my mind. So added to the stress, you have to figure out how to work on your laptop. And then at the same time, whether the speaker is working, and then you need to show your camera. Sometimes on Zoom, certain cameras do not work. You need to have a green screen before you can have a virtual background. And that happened on my Apple Pro laptop, and it was really very bad. So I went in really very, I would say in a very bad language, very kanchong, very anxious, a lot of butterflies in my stomach, already added to the anxiety that I'm having, because it was a break for me to finally get to interview with a company that I like very much, and I have been following them very closely. The other mistake that I also had on online interviews is not to have my laptop charged. Sometimes you never know, with the bandwidth, chatting on a camera and then having your speakers on, and then you have your screen on all the time, is different from working on your laptop. And so even though you see that, you probably have 1 hour left or 2 hours left, the battery power may drop substantially at a very quick timing. So imagine I have to actually ask my wife to help me to secretly from the back pass me the power so that I can plug it in, and I pretend looking closer to the camera like that, so that they cannot see what's happening behind me, and then I got my power charged. So thankfully I was doing it, but it's not a good idea to also have your interviews close to any loved ones. If it's in your house, right, make sure the doors is closed, you don't have any distraction. So of course, I've learned my lesson. After every interview, I ensure that my laptop is always charged to the power supply, right? And so you can be 100% sure of one technical glitch that you are going to face. All right. The other part that I messed up before also was basically getting on the right time zone. So in some of my roles, which I had interviews, I basically had interviews with colleagues from India. I also had colleagues from the US that actually interviewed me. And even in the US, we think that, US is just one US, but there are so many time zones in Washington, in New York, in California, in Florida. The time zones are very different. So when you do speak to the recruiter or the talent acquisition manager, make sure, and I say in my notes, confirm, double confirm, and triple confirm the right time. You don't want to be waking up too early in the morning and finding out that, the interview is only later at night, or vice versa, or you join the meeting at the wrong time, and that will reflect very badly on you. Given that this is one of the key attributes, right, that people are looking as a soft skill, to be very detailed in reading emails, ensuring that you include this in your calendars, and making sure that you arrive on time. The other part that I think was very important to me is also dressing up. I see a lot of candidates, basically, they join in their t-shirt, all right? Or at one instance, it's a joke, but it really did happen. So basically, we were interviewing, and this person was only dressed at the top area here, okay? He's not wearing his pants. So not wearing a long pants or something presentable. And, he wanted to take some notes and he forgot to take his pen or something, and he went to grab, so it's okay. He was bold enough to say, hey, I think I forgotten to take a note of a pen or something. But when he stood up and went to take it, we could actually see it in the camera. So that's something that I think is very, very important. You make sure that you're dressed properly, because sometimes dressing up, believe it or not, it makes your feeling different. You will feel confident somehow. And for the ladies, right, even if you need to put makeup, go ahead, because it will help you to build that kind of ambience, and you will feel the difference, because it's very important to be confident, not overly confident, but to be confident enough so that you are able to deliver your value to your audience, to your interviewer. All right. So I'll share screen again. I think every one of us loves some notes to summarize what I've talked about.
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
All right. So research is never enough of researching. One thing that I also encourage people to do is go on LinkedIn and research the interviewer, right? Who is this person that you're talking to? Sometimes they don't tell you. They just say, okay, Edmund Tan. Who is Edmund Tan in this organization? Is he the hiring manager? Is he a colleague of yours? Because then you need to understand the people. It's like going to a party, going to a dinner, right? You need to know these people before you can tune the right information and how you want to deliver it. If you're talking to your hiring manager, the set of questions will be different. If you're talking to the HR, it's different. If you're talking to the senior management, it's different. You want to be able to portray to yourself to be a person that is flexible, to tune your speech and your pitch to different levels of the management level. And that is what is going to differentiate you from the other candidates. If you're asking the same questions from interview 1, interview 2, and interview 3, the level of questions, the depth of the questions that you're asking also will then depend on how much research you have done. Yeah. From the questions that you ask, people can understand, or the interviewer will know that you have done your research or not. All right. Familiarize with application on your computer. I think that's given. Conducive environment. I think everybody is sometimes, we may not be able to find a conducive environment. If you really cannot find a conducive environment, I think there are spaces that you can rent now, right? There are WeWork and all that. If you take the interview seriously enough and you're really wanting this job, then I think you will go all out to make it happen, because it's an opportunity that you do not want to miss. An opportunity sometimes, not all the time, maybe God blesses you with another chance, but most of the time it will only come knocking to your door once. So you need to make sure that you make it work. And with COVID situation, it has actually opened up a lot of possibilities. So if you really cannot find something, go and find online. There is WeWork. There are many around the shopping malls where you have actually a proper cubicle. And it's actually going to be very good for you, because then you can really focus on the interview itself proper, right? Be punctual, dress for success, right posture, don't lean too much towards the computer where your whole interview will see your entire face. Don't be too far, I think they were talking about how to connect with people. So when you're talking to the interviewer, or when you're expressing yourself, when the person is talking, nod your head, nod your head, smile, practice smiling. Nodding your head is also very, very simple gestures that you can show. all right? Other than hand gestures and all that, you need to be very careful because sometimes the bandwidth may not be that good and you will stutter. So do be careful with that if you want to try to use hand gestures. But I think the simple ones that you can do is to nod your head and smile. That is really going to be much more to help you already in terms of getting the right posture and also connecting with people to know that people will know that you are engaging. Okay, it's different. Definitely it's different. And you know, until you get to the fourth or third interview, you will then probably be in person. But to be honest, you know, in my past 2 roles, my interviews have been 100% virtual. And
right? I mean,
100% virtual, everything. You know, I even did a full-on 3-day interview process with role play, with replying emails and everything, 100% on Zoom and virtually.
Oh, so you went through an assessment center.
Yes.
And that was virtual. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so we really need to be very savvy in making things, but sometimes, you know, interviewing is not doing presentation, so the amount of technical stuff that you need to have is also much lesser. So take time to practice. In this region, I think Teams and Skype and Zoom are the most used type. Okay, and then last but not least, of course, is practice. All right.
That's only for preparing, yeah.
Yes, that's only for preparing.
Only for preparing, yes. So how far back should anyone start preparing for an interview? How far back?
I would say if you're asking for too long of a time, people will doubt whether you're interested. You know, opportunity is there. You need to catch it fast. I would say if you're already in the mode of in the interview, I would say give the person 1 or 2 days, 3 days. I think will be a workable time period. It's same as business, right? When you get a business request, you can respond within 1 to 3 working days, 2 to 3 working days. I think that's reasonable. If you are dragging upon, then you need to have a good explanation as to why you cannot make the interview. Maybe you have a prior engagement already. But if you do, you know, tell the person that's interviewing, tell the HR guy that you are making efforts to try to get the interviewing done as fast as possible, as soon as possible. Because remember, there is many people queuing up for that same role. With now that there's virtual, everybody in global is fighting for that same role that you're having. I think we're talking about young people. We're talking about people coming from overseas, vying for that same job. You know, you may say that they are less professional, they may be less qualified, but organizations look at values differently, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And we cannot control that, right? We cannot control whether they are really doing it in the interest of the locals for us, or even if they are doing it in the interest of the business. But if you think of it, you put yourself in the same shoe as you are in the interview. If you are the interviewer and you are only given a certain budget and you are only given a certain timeline, then that pressure is on you as an interviewer. But then, you know, those things cannot be controlled. And, you know, as much as we want to do what's best, right? Sometimes we just need to make a decision, and it may be not the right decision, but a decision has to be made, and sometimes it's not in your favor.
Sure. Okay. I'm curious about this very common question that I hear as well. If the interviewer gives you a choice between the first slot or the last slot, which slot will you take?
For me? Okay. So I speak for myself.
For you.
Yeah, I speak for myself.
No right or wrong answer anyway.
I will definitely run for the first slot. Why? Because when people start off, they're always very energetic. They're always very alert, you know. Yeah. And some of the interviewers, and it also depends whether it's the last slot. If the last slot is at the end of the day, you know, if you are really confident that you can wow them and make them excited, then that's something else. But if you are able to get the first slot, you know, why not? Because that's where they are the freshest. That's when you can really put a difference to them, and you can set the benchmark that, hey, you know, I'm the best, rather than thinking that, hey, you know, I'm at the last, and so then I can showcase that I'm the best. It's always, you know, standing in the forefront, being the leader, being able to take it up. I think especially when sometimes they actually are open to tell you who your competitors are. Some organizations, they will just send an email with multiple individuals there, and then you will know exactly who they are and whoever responds first and who is going to pick the slot. I think all of these, if you look at organization psychology, some of the HR, they are trained psychology to understand, you know, the human mind. What's this person thinking and how is he going to respond in a stressful situation? So that's why I'm saying the preparation for the interview, the beginning of the interview is at the point where you pick up the phone now. It's really very that crucial. Picking up the phone, how you address a phone call, by introducing yourself, by saying good afternoon, my name is Melvin, who is on the line, please. All of these basic etiquettes come together. It needs to be built in, especially when you're on the interview process. You cannot say, hello, what's up? Who is that? It's not really quite professional. So you do not know who it was. Yeah.
So the general guideline, I think for the interest of everyone is usually we recommend taking the first slot first if you can, because you set the stage. All right. Now the last slot, there's always this saying, they might not get to you because they might have found the ideal one. You never get your chance if you choose the last slot. Of course, you can always argue and say, but and then you and all that, but doesn't matter. Don't leave it to chance. Yeah. We also have a general guideline. They always say that, the time slot right after lunch, even though it's a sleepy slot, is when the tummies are filled already. And usually there was studies that was done that was looking at how lenient the judges were in court. This is just generic human nature studies. They say that the slot after lunch tends to be, they tend to be a little bit more lenient. That does not distract them away. That doesn't mean that, the main crime is overlooked. Just some psychology there. Okay. So great. Yeah. Moving on. And just mindful that we've got like 10 more minutes left.
All right. Okay. So during the interview, I think the most important is to be the best version of yourself, right? Remember, the interview is about selling yourself. It's like a person telling you, sell me this pen, right? You need to bring up your values. You need to bring up your strengths. You need to bring your experiences, and then also your passion and your aspirations. So it's important to know that. All right. So in your opinion, how long should an interview session last, right? And also, I think the other question that we have, right, which I will also share, is that, do you think that asking questions is important during the interviews? So one of the key things that I hold very dearly to is asking questions. So for me, in the preparation process, I make sure that I list down at least 20, 30 questions. Not only questions that I will ask them, this is very important, but also the questions that they may ask us. So sit down and think about it. And there are so many questions that are available online in YouTube, right? Talking about questions. It may be common questions. It may be questions that are relevant to your role, right? If you are in sales, like for me, my question to them is that, what is the budget that you're looking at for me as a salesperson to achieve? Because then asking these questions will allow you to know, okay, this is the compensation I should be getting in the future if there's interview 2, interview 3, because they will ask you, so how much is the pay that you're asking for? So that's very important.
Expected salary.
Yes.
That's a common question.
Yeah.
One of the 4 common questions. Yeah.
Right. So by asking those questions, you lay the ground, right, to say that you have enough backup information to then justify, hey, yes, you need this amount of budget, and based on my experience in sales, with this amount of budget, typically for a sales guy, we should be getting this kind of remuneration packages. All right. So the other part also about asking questions is that I tried to trick, in one of my last interviews that I had, was to ask the same question to all the people, to all the interviewers throughout my entire interview process. Why did I do that experiment? Now, I did that experiment because I wanted to know whether the organization is speaking the same tune. There are a lot of organizations, one guy will say one thing, another guy will say another, and then another guy will say another. And if all of these does not match up, then in the organization is a little bit fragmented. I'm not saying that it's a do or die kind of thing, but asking some questions will really that are close to you, right, on what you value as a person, talking about principles, talking about how they value you as an employee. I think these are relevant questions that you want to know, and making sure that you are able to understand this company before you actually sign on a contract, because you do not want to be job hopping after 1 month to say that, hey, it's not suitable, this company is not suitable for me, and it's not going to reflect well on you, right? Because the interview process is about understanding both parties. It's about the employer understanding you, and at the same time you understanding the employer. So that's why there's question and there's an interview. It's basically a communication, a two-way communication. And if you see that as a two-way communication, sometimes you bring that level of stress down, because you are also evaluating the employer, right?
Yep.
You can ask
Yep.
them, hey, what are you doing for the environment, for example, you know, what are the social responsibility programs that you plan to do, or how are you planning to develop your employees, right? Do you have any development plans for me, right? So these are the questions that will then tell them that, hey, I'm interested about development. I'm looking to be in an organization for the long run, and it's not just for the short term.
Okay, so unanimously voted, everybody chose yes, they will ask questions. That it is very important. Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
So prepare for that, and you know, list down all these questions. One of the good things about web online interviews is that you can actually sort of have a cheat sheet in your beside you. I will recommend basically sticking it right in front of your camera, where you are looking at the camera and looking straight forward. You know, don't write your narrative or don't write your answers, but all the key points, you know, write it in big fonts, and then so when you're reading it, you know, as Eileen mentioned, you know, one of the candidates, you're looking left, looking right, you know, be confident. And then, you know, that's the part of the advantage of having an online interview, is that you can have these notepads stuck to your screen, you know, and you, so that it can remind you of the questions that you want to ask during the interview.
Yep, that's right. Okay, I think we've got 2 more questions, but that's okay. We've got some of these 2 questions. I've taken note of Ken's question and Jessica's question. Maybe just let Melvin finish off his speech first, because he's got this last part about closing as well, which I thought was very interesting.
Okay, so so quickly, you know, listen carefully, articulate yourself. Your body language, I covered that, right? Not your head smile. Don't rely too much on notes. When I say notes, is tons and tons of words. Very importantly, be yourself, be natural. You know, people can know that if you are coming to be a fake. Be yourself, you know, don't try to fake it, and be authentic as possible. Connect with your interviewers, right? They were talking about connection. How do you connect? So that way you talk about researching about the interviewer, right? Know their interests. They have certain focus groups that these interviewers may be focused on, you know, on LinkedIn. Not asking you to gossip and find out how many kids they have or how many dogs they have, but on LinkedIn, you know, they may be involved in certain social responsibility programs. They may have some views on certain topics that are happening globally. So be mindful of that, and try to connect with them. Don't forget the small talks. You know, in online, we always forget the small talks, talking about the weather. How are you? You know, how have you been? How's COVID in your area? All of these small talks will allow you to be authentic, and you will also help yourself to calm down, because you are realizing that you are talking to a person very naturally. Asking questions is important. Go and research about the 5 C's, right? Culture, challenges, closing, and also getting their context as well. It's very, very important for that. Okay. So after the interview, I've quoted here basically, the past is where you learn the lesson, the future is where you apply the lesson. After the interview, it's very important for you to take stock on how you perform, what you did well, what you didn't do well, how you can improve. And interview is ongoing. Remember that if you felt that you didn't do well at that interview, sometimes it may not be. I always go through that. I will say, oh, yeah, okay, this one sure I cannot pass. But later you realize, hey, the HR person called you again back for another interview. So sometimes, you know, don't be too harsh on yourself. Focus on improving, focus on moving ahead. And I think that's what's going to help you. And I think after the interview, have the mindset that you want to learn the lesson and then apply this in the next interview. All right. So after the interview, right, take notes of the points discussed, because it is very important for you as it comes very fresh in your mind. Write a thank you email. This is so important. Cover, thank them, right? Be grateful of the opportunity. Tell them that you are interested in the opportunity. And also, this gives you another opportunity to write down certain key points that you want to drive across, that you felt that you were not able to articulate too well. This gives you probably a second chance. And writing a thank you email will help in that way. Connecting on social media, on LinkedIn, you know, drop them a message on LinkedIn when you connect with them. Tell them that you met this person or you met him or her during the interview process and you like to connect with her. Sometimes all of these connections, all of these relations are very important, because you will not know where these relations will bring you and where this opportunity will be. sometimes is the current situation that the hiring manager is not able to hire you. But when there's an opportunity that comes, and many instances for me as well, I can vouch for that. They came back and asked, hey, are you interested? And that's where you know you will most likely get the job, because they remembered you as a potential candidate. You are already above the rest. Okay. Speaking to your recruiter and talent manager, I think this is so important. Again, this is on relationship building. I think during the other scenarios that Eileen was sharing about, talking to the HR, always be friendly, right? Talk to them, because they can be your ears and eyes in the organization. They may able to share with you, what is your competitive edge, whether you have a better chance at it, and then also give you feedback on the interview, and also provide you insights to the interviewer, whether what kind of person they are. Are they technical person? Are they sales person? Do they value information versus your skills, your experience? So all of these will then help you in your next interview process. Last but not least is don't rush the process. I think all of us, waiting for that answer, waiting for that reply is very anxious. We are waiting and waiting. How come no reply? How come they never call me? Make sure you ask them when they're going to make a decision. When is the timeline? When they're going to decide, right? And then make sure you get their emails, make sure you get their contact. So this will help you to follow up with them later. I would say a typical timeline will be around 1 to 2 weeks, right? They may give you a 1 to 2 weeks timeline, but remember the interview process is flexible. Sometimes it may take up to 3 months to 4 months. Personally, I waited for a role for 6 months. And even to take up the role, they have to wait for me 2 months. So if you are really worried, the company will wait for you. There is no excuse that they won't want you. So don't rush the process. Learn how to handle, learn when to follow up, learn when to let go, and talk to the customers, to your interviewers. So last part, the interview cycle, I think I talked about it. This is a cycle that you need to go in circles. Be always prepared. Make sure you follow these processes before, during, and after every single interview, whether it's first or the last interview. Be on top of that and you will be successful. The last part is some parting words from me personally that I feel, all of us are all special. We possess skills. We possess all these special values and strengths that we have. Now, only those that values them, they will see them, right? If those who don't see them, they don't value them because it's not important for them. What's important for us and what we can control is basically to surround ourselves with those people that sees our value. And most importantly, join an organization that values the values that you have and are also willing to help you to develop new ones. All right. So that's all for my sharing. Thank you very much.
Wow, Melvin. Can everyone join me, please, to give a round of applause to Melvin? Please join me. Yay. Let's do that. Yeah, reactions button. I need you to give me your reactions button. Yeah, I see quite a few people have given you the applause. Yay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. There is a question which I thought was very interesting though. I know Melvin, he actually came up with his 20 points and everyone will get all his 20 points when you download his presentation deck. He is so generous. So when I look at it and I say, wow, Melvin, you really stuck true to the theme of the seminar. This is so cool. One question which I thought was very interesting was, are there off-limit questions that you should not ask? When you said questions to the panel at the last part.
I think in this day and age, it's very important that we keep the questions business. You can talk about family, but don't go and probe and talk about sensitive issues like religion, political stance. I think this is very important, with a lot of situations that is going ahead, on LGBT, a lot of discussions about Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of talks about China, Taiwan, Hong Kong. Those are the kind of topics, where you basically will not be able to handle, because it can work in your favor, it can work against you. Because if the person is in favor with you, then okay, you're seeing the same tune and everything is good. But at the same time, if you're dealing with multiple people, you cannot control. And so it's best not to do that. I think questions about typical questions that you will speak to a stranger, right? On the first day that you will know them. Hey, how have you come to this company? How you feel about this company? What's the best thing that you like about this company? What has helped you to be in this company for 20 years? that shows that you have researched about the interviewer. You know that he has rise through the ranks for 20 years. Try to get those kind of things for them, and they will appreciate that because they see that, hey, you value me. So when I feel good about you, people will remember you and say, oh, this guy actually remembered or knew that I worked for this company for 20 years. Yes, you know, the company didn't pat me on the back, but you as an interviewee, right? You pat me on my back and say, hey, you know, it's not easy to be in this organization or to be any organization for 20 years. Hey, thank you so much. You know, you've been an inspiration for me in the future to really focus on what I do and what I do best. So these are the kind of things that you can talk about, get inspiration, and also, you know, to help you to get motivated. I think a lot of things we learn from each other, be open, and all of these questions should be something that you can learn and be beneficial for you. And I think if you stick towards this topic, right, you will not go wrong. First, to make sure that whatever you ask is going to be beneficial for you. It's not going to be something like a scandal or something that, you know, is off topic. If it's going to be beneficial for you to learn a lesson, then I think it's something that is worth asking.
Yeah. So I think thanks so much. That actually, you know, reminded me of another point. I think if you have the panel one-to-one, then you can ask some individual questions like your work history, your work background, and all that. When you're in a panel kind of setting, ask questions that actually indirectly showcase your strength. You know, by asking that question, it make them turn and look at you. You know, if you can, yeah. So that is so brilliant as well. Thank you so much. Yeah, I like what Melvin said about giving compliment, recognizing their years of work. That kind of comment you can say in public because I think the recognition, you know, grows from there. Yay! Thank you again. And you know, I am so happy to notice that Janice has actually joined us. Hi, Janice.
Hi, Janice.
Hi, Janice.
Hi, Melbourne. Hi, Eileen. Yes,
Hi.
I made it.
You made it. That's so wonderful. Yay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is to give you a proper introduction. So yeah. So thanks for that. So we can see here, I've already included the link to download Melvin's deck. So all that he mentioned, all his 20 points are in his deck.